Do you think the loser can win over the hottest student in school? How will she react to his friend when she climbs on top of the high schooler? And how will her military boyfriend react to all of this? You'll find out in tonight's retelling. Enjoy! The movie begins with a bustling high school graduation party. The air is filled with a mix of excitement and nostalgia as students celebrate their big day. Among the crowd is Denis, the quirky and endearing protagonist, whose heart has long been set on the school's queen bee, Beth Cooper. Denis has spent years silently admiring Beth, but as the chapter of high school comes to an end, his best friend Rich gives him a nudge. "This is your last chance, man," Rich tells him with dramatic flair. "Tell her how you feel, or you'll regret it forever." Denis wrestles with the idea, but Rich's words echo in his mind. It's now or never. Soon, the school's teacher steps up to introduce Denis, handing him the microphone to deliver his graduation speech. At first, it's the usual, uninspired spiel, the kind of thing that makes people yawn and check the time. Denis's parents, however, are beaming in the audience, cheering as though he's delivering a life-altering TED Talk. Suddenly, Denis decides to flip the script. His voice grows steadier, his posture more confident. The room perks up as he abandons the boring pre-written speech and confesses his love for Beth Cooper. "I love you, Beth Cooper," he announces to a stunned audience. Gasps ripple through the crowd, and Denis's heart races. Beth, caught completely off guard, freezes in shock. She doesn't even know Denis exists, and now the entire room is staring at her. To make things worse, her military boyfriend, Kevin, is also in the crowd, and his glare could pierce steel. Denis doesn't stop there. With an air of defiance, he turns his confession into a motivational rally. "We've all got something we've been holding back," he says, his voice filled with conviction. "Say it now. Don't leave here with regrets." The crowd remains silent, their mouths agape. Denis steps down, feeling both exhilarated and mortified. Outside, as the crowd disperses, a teacher pulls Denis aside. She reprimands him for his outburst, but softens when she recalls her own youthful infatuations. "I get it," she says with a knowing smile. "Love makes us do crazy things." Just as Denis is beginning to process what he's done, Beth herself appears. He can barely believe it. She approaches him with a mix of curiosity and awkwardness. "That was unexpected," she says, her tone teetering between discomfort and amusement. She admits that while his confession threw her off guard, she found it oddly sweet. Then, in a surprising moment of confidence, Beth shrugs off her graduation robe, revealing a snug t-shirt and shorts underneath. Denis is stunned by how effortlessly gorgeous she looks, and his heart skips a beat. Before the conversation can go anywhere, Rich shows up, breaking the moment with his usual antics. Beth turns to leave, but Denis quickly calls after her. "Wait," he blurts out. "I'm having a party tonight. You should come." Beth hesitates, clearly unsure. Before she can respond, Kevin storms onto the scene. His presence is as threatening as a thunderstorm. He grabs Denis by the collar, lifting him off the ground with ease. "Stay away from her," Kevin growls. Just as it seems like Denis is doomed, the teacher from earlier intervenes, scolding Kevin and forcing him to back off. Shaken but not deterred, Denis and Rich head home to prepare for the party. Along the way, a group of classmates mocks them, shouting insults and calling them losers. Rich, ever the dramatist, suddenly announces, "By the way, I'm straight. I like girls." Denis looks at him, baffled. "Wait, what?" he asks. Rich shrugs. "Why would you think otherwise?" Denis stammers, recalling an incident, but refusing to admit it out loud. They laugh it off and move on to discussing their lack of high school girlfriends. Denis admits he's never had one because he's too shy to approach girls. At home, the friends chuckle as they prepare for the party. Denis, nervous, sniffs his t-shirt and decides it needs airing out. His parents, meanwhile, offer well-meaning but hilariously awkward advice about how to impress girls. They leave him with 23 bottles of champagne, an appointed reminder to change your underwear if he wants the night to end well. Before leaving, Denis's dad gives him one final piece of advice: make this summer unforgettable. As the boys anxiously wait for guests, a car screeches into the driveway. It's Beth, and she's brought her two glamorous best friends. The sight of them instantly lifts the boys' spirits. Beth's confidence is magnetic, and her friends are equally dazzling. The girls step inside and immediately notice the lack of guests. "Are we the first ones here?" Beth asks, surprised. The boys, flustered, try to play it cool, but end up making awkward jokes that fly over the girls' heads. Beth takes a call from Kevin, who's demanding to know where she is. She dodges his questions while Denis and Rich bring out the champagne to lighten the mood. As the champagne flows, the atmosphere begins to loosen. The girls giggle and flirt, hinting that they're ready to let loose. Rich, sensing an opportunity, rushes to retrieve the stash of protection Denis's parents left behind. Meanwhile, Denis struggles with the champagne bottle, fumbling as he tries to pop the cork. Beth, still on the phone with Kevin, refuses to disclose her location. When Denis finally opens the bottle, the cork flies out with surprising force, smacking Beth square in the forehead. She winces, but the scene quickly turns comedic. Denis and Rich rush to her aid. Beth, now lying on the couch with a cold compress, flirts with Denis. Their playful banter builds a charged tension, and Denis's nervous excitement becomes unmistakable. Beth notices, and to Denis's shock, she doesn't seem to mind. The girls, sensing the escalating chemistry, decide it's time to leave. But just as they're heading out, another car roars into the driveway. It's Kevin and his friends. The boys are immediately on high alert as Kevin's car parks aggressively on the lawn. One of Beth's friends opens the door to greet her boyfriend, but Denis acts fast, pulling her inside and locking the door. As the camera lingers on Kevin's menacing glare, the tension reaches a boiling point. Denis bolts through the house, slamming windows shut in a desperate attempt to keep Kevin out. The chaos intensifies as Kevin bursts through the last door Denis failed to close in time. His imposing presence fills the room, and he wastes no time making his rage known. He threatens Denis with a menacing tone, grabbing a vase and smashing it against the wall. The tension skyrockets as Kevin snatches a bottle of champagne, hurling it with force. Luckily, Denis and Rich duck in time. Kevin, not satisfied, picks up the microwave. He smashes it into the wall, sending sparks and debris flying. Denis and Rich, realizing they're outmatched, make a break for it, running upstairs to lock themselves in a bedroom. Frantic, they search for anything to defend themselves with. Their options are grim. A child's toy sword is all they can find. Denis stands by the wall, gripping the toy sword tightly, while Rich hides in the closet, trembling. When Kevin barges into the room, his gaze immediately falls on a framed photo of Beth hanging above Denis's bed. A mocking smirk spreads across Kevin's face. Denis, though terrified, steps forward to confront Kevin. Before he can act, Kevin grabs a skeleton prop from the corner of the room. He rips off its arms and brandishes them like weapons, twirling them with surprising dexterity. Kevin lunges, using the skeleton arms to jab and swipe at Denis. Denis clumsily attempts to fight back with the toy sword, but is no match for Kevin's improvised weaponry. Seeing his friend in peril, Rich finally musters the courage to act. He bursts out of the closet, sprints across the room, and jumps out the window, leaving Denis behind. Just as Kevin gains the upper hand, Beth storms into the room, demanding he stop. She notices her picture above Denis's bed, and a mix of surprise and amusement crosses her face. Kevin, momentarily distracted, lets his guard down, giving Denis the chance to escape. Denis dives out the window but lands painfully in a rose bush. Despite the scratches and humiliation, he scrambles to his feet and pulls Rich along as they flee over the backyard fence. Kevin and his friends are quick to give chase. Denis and Rich sprint across the neighborhood, their lungs burning as they hear the sound of pursuit closing in. Out of nowhere, headlights blind Denis. A car screeches to a halt just inches away. It's Beth behind the wheel, gesturing for him to get in. Without hesitation, Denis and Rich dive into the car, and Beth floors it. Her friends cheer in the back seat, adding to the chaos. As the adrenaline fades, Denis begins to notice that Beth's driving is less than stellar. Rich, sitting uneasily, recalls their disastrous driving school lessons and realizes they're far from safe. Denis, trying to regain his composure, asks for a phone to call his parents. However, when the vibrating phone ends up awkwardly stuffed into someone's pants during the chaos, Denis gives up on the idea. Beth, realizing they can be tracked through the phone, tosses it out the window with a casual shrug. To ease the tension, they crank up the music. The car becomes a mobile party, with everyone singing, laughing, and momentarily forgetting the dangers outside. Eventually, they arrive at a gas station. Beth slams on the brakes, causing Denis to lurch forward and accidentally land in a compromising position between her legs. Embarrassed, he scrambles to his feet. Beth and Denis head into the convenience store to buy beer. Denis seizes the moment to compliment Beth, who seems genuinely pleased. However, when the clerk refuses to sell them alcohol due to their age, Beth takes matters into her own hands. She flirts shamelessly and seals the deal with a bold, passionate kiss. Denis overhears this and feels a pang of disappointment. His image of Beth begins to crack. The group eventually finds themselves in the woods, where they light a bonfire and attempt to enjoy the night. Beth shows off her party tricks, including opening a beer bottle with her teeth. Inspired, Denis tries the same, but ends up breaking a tooth, much to everyone's amusement. The atmosphere softens as romantic music plays in the background. The group decides to give Denis and Beth some alone time, wandering off to explore. Meanwhile, Rich and the others stumble upon a herd of cows. What starts as a silly idea to take one down quickly turns into a stampede, forcing them to flee for their lives. They return to the car, breathless and covered in dirt. Rich reeks of manure, prompting Beth to make him ditch his sneakers before getting back in. Beth, ever the reckless driver, turns off the headlights as a joke, but it backfires when they crash into another car. To everyone's horror, it turns out to be Denis's parents. They quickly duck out of sight, watching in horror as Denis's parents inspect the damage. Beth slams on the gas, and they speed off before being recognized. The night's chaos continues as they arrive at a pool party. Beth heads straight to the pool, mingling with other guests while Denis heads to the bathroom. There, he encounters Greg, a former rival he insulted during graduation. Surprisingly, Greg opens up about his struggles and the two bond. Greg, moved by Denis's words, ends up crying and hugging him. Feeling slightly better, Denis rejoins the party. Things take a dramatic turn when Kevin shows up, looking for revenge. Denis tries to rally support from the crowd, but finds himself outnumbered. Just when all seems lost, Greg steps in, defending Denis and taking on Kevin and his cronies. The brawl ends with everyone battered but alive. Beth and her friends rescue the boys in the nick of time, pulling up in their car and whisking them away. The group ends their wild night back at school. As cheerleaders, Beth and her friends perform a playful routine for the guys. The moment grows bittersweet as Beth opens up about her fears of life after high school. Denis reassures her, and they share a heartfelt moment. As dawn breaks, Denis and Beth watch the sunrise together, reflecting on the night's events. Beth admits she'll miss high school, but feels reassured by Denis's optimism. The movie closes with Denis returning home to face his parents. Despite the scolding, his father commends him for living boldly. Denis smiles, realizing it was a night he'll never forget. Beth and her friends drive off, promising to reunite someday, leaving Denis with a newfound sense of confidence and a story worth telling. Did you enjoy the recap? Please like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be updated next time we drop. Thanks for watching.